Welcome back, y'all. Dave the Gamer here. Today, wanted to give a little love to my Shadow Priest out there and make a best in slot phase 5 for my Shadow Priest. Originally, that is the class I wanted to play, and I was hesitant because everybody's just so worried about min-maxing, so you don't need a Shadow Priest. And personally, I love you guys. I main my Warlock a lot of times, and I love when I see your little buff there to spike up my damage so I can climb that meter. So I don't hate on Shadow Priest, and they're going to be begging for your help in TBC, so fuck all of them. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about what I think overall the best in slot possible that you can get. Obviously, being the best in slot, it's going to take a while, and especially since a lot of guilds are haters, and if you're not in a DKP guild, then there's a high chance that a lot of these items you're going to fall down the list. People are going to hate on you, and it's going to take you a little while to actually get all of these best in slot. So that being said, I'm going to talk about what the best in slot is, along with at least 2 other alternatives. Obviously, there might be some alternatives I miss, and I love to hear all of your guys' comments below. You know, if I hit the nail on the hammer, or did I miss out on some of the items and I should have mentioned some other ones. So please give me some feedback. I love to hear from you guys. But we're going to start off with the headpiece. Headpiece, Spell Weaver's Turban, 36 damage, 1% hit. This is a hell of a nice headpiece out of the upper Blackrock Spire. Now that we're able to actually get this off them. An alternative to this, you're looking at the Hexer's Cover. 41 damage. So you do get a little, 5 more damage overall, but you do lose the hit. Now, Shadow Priests don't need a ton of hit, where most of their damage is actually coming from Shadow Word Pain, and maybe throwing some Mind Flay in there. You gotta be careful with that Mind Blast crits. So this one is definitely respectable. This is, I consider, almost like a bare minimum, because it's easy as shit to get out of ZG. You could be spamming the shit out of this. If you wanted to go with the set piece out of AQ, 28 damage, 7 mana per 5 seconds, and 1% crit, 1% hit. So obviously it is about 8 damage less. Personally, I think this one is better overall for the fact that you're getting the 7 mana per 5 seconds, and that's where most Shadow Priests struggle. Mainly on longer fights, if you come well equipped with all of the raid consumables and everything, they can keep up pretty damn close, I would argue, with damage, but they do run out of mana. So having these, I would rather sacrifice 8 overall damage to be able to get more mana per 5 seconds. So I personally think the Tiara overall is the best in slot. So a lot of it depends, okay? So when I say best in slot, it's too hard for me to actually tell you every scenario depending on this boss and this. That'd take me fucking hours. So on shorter fights where you're going to burst through the boss, yes, you want more damage per 5 seconds, or more overall raw damage. If you know it's going to be a much longer fight and you might have the chance of running out of mana, then you would switch to something like this. A lot of times you're going to have multiple different sets depending on the scenario. So Spell Weavers, the Tiara, and then even the Warlords rank 13 is pretty good. 33, 4 mana per 5 seconds. I still would go with the Tiara though. As far as the necklace, the Choker of the Fire Lord, raw 34 overall damage, is still an excellent neck piece out of Molten Core. Now your next runner up, 27 actual damage, 1% crit. You're not really worried about crit, and every single Warlock and Mage is going to want this one, so I would just forget about it. That's where I would argue, hey, I'm not going to roll on the Amulet. Let me get the Choker. And then another alternative out of the AQ is you can get the Shifting Sands. 25 overall damage, obviously a good bit less. The Talisman out of ZG, this would be what I consider a bare minimum. 22 damage, 3 mana per 5 seconds. So if you didn't get your hands on the Shifting Sand or the Fire Lord, at bare minimum have this. And I mean, realistically, if you just want to buy your way and just get geared up without really doing anything, You could turn in tickets at the Dark Moon Fair and get this one with 22. But why not run ZG to get the little mana per 5 seconds? Looking at the shoulders, you're going to be going for the Mantle of Blackwing Cabal. 34 damage overall. These are still excellent, even with AQ out. And you're getting this from BWL, like I said, so you should be able to, if you don't already have your hands on this, make sure you do. So some alternatives, the Fellcloth Shoulders, 26. You're shaving off 8 damage, which sucks. If you're already rank 13, then you could also go with the Warlord Shoulders, 25 overall damage. The Fellcloth is a little bit more, but you get a ton of intellect and stamina out of the actual Warlords ones, which, you know, to have a little bit more intellect and a little bit more life never hurts. Some of the other alternatives you could be looking at is the Mana of Oracle, 20 damage, 3 mana per 5 seconds, and decreases the magical resistance of your spell target. So these aren't bad. This is the quest one you're going to get from AQ. So this you can get pretty damn easy. I feel like you are going to be battling with some other classes, but once you run it so often, pretty much no one's going to need it anymore. So like I said, Blackwing Cabal, number 1. And then I would probably go with the Mantle. Worst case, you better not have anything less than the Fellcloth Shoulders. Looking at the back piece, the Cloak of the Devoured. 30 overall damage, 1% hit. This is fucking great back piece. Once again, you're going to be fighting with all of your Warlocks, your Druids. If there is a Druid, same with if there's a Shadow Priest. I think I fight for you guys, so I think you should be there. But you're going to be fighting with everybody for this. As an alternative, this is like a bare minimum again. You should be getting the one out of ZG. 23 damage, 1% hit, so you're losing 7 overall damage, but this one's very easy to get. And then worst case, you could even get the Brood Lord, so for whatever reason you're just having shitty luck on the Cloak of Consumption, get the one out of BWL off Brood Lord. So the best in slot for your chest piece, the Jade Vestments, 44 damage. That's pretty damn strong. So this one you're going to be getting out of Fellwood. Now there's obviously some alternatives that you can get if you're waiting on this one. The Robe of the Winter Knight, 40 shadow. This one I feel is like a bare minimum because you can craft it. It's nice and easy to get. You could, if you're really struggling, you have 0% hit and you just can't hit anything, you could go with the Bloodvine chest, 27 and 2% hit. But you're giving up a lot of raw damage. So I would go with the Robe of Winter Knight while waiting on the vestments if you haven't already got the vestments. Now looking at the bracers, there's no reason you should have anything else but the Rock Fury bracers. You get it from getting revered through Silithist, 27 damage, 1% hit. These are excellent overall bracers. There's really nothing. I mean, the bracers of arcane accuracy, if for whatever reason someone gave these to you, then yeah, you could use these, but it's not that hard to get revered, especially with running AQ a couple times. It might take you a week or two. You're going to get revered and get these. So like I wouldn't use up my DKP, or I wouldn't really prioritize trying to get the arcane accuracies when you can get the Rock Fury so easy. Now this is where I would be using up a lot of my points and trying to really get a weapon out of these people. The mace, 84 damage overall. This mace is massive. So most people like your mages and warlocks are going to be fighting for the Staff of Shadow Flame along with some of the other weapons coming out of AQ 40. This is where not everybody uses a mace. This is where you can sneak in and actually steal this one. But I could already see there's going to be healing druids and pellies. If you know, they're going to prioritize them if they have a shitty weapon, just because healing is so important. But I would put my foot down, man. You gotta fucking stick up for yourself. This is your best in slot. So I would put this very high on my priority list of something to actually get my hands on. As far as something, if you didn't get the actual mace, bare minimum you could go with is the Anthem. 69 shadow damage, 7 mana per 5 seconds. The 7 mana per 5 seconds is very nice. So this is a respectable one while you wait. Even the Claw of Cro-Magnus is pretty good. 64, 4 mana per 5 seconds. You give up a ton of damage. You get a little bit more mana per 5 seconds. When in reality, there are, like for longer fights, I would sacrifice the damage, because if you go and you're just standing there wanding and shit like that, it's not going to be any good for you. Your damage overall is going to look pretty pitiful. So for longer fights, you definitely want to prioritize having stuff with mana per 5 seconds. Like I said, if you sacrifice some overall raw damage, it's going to pay off when you don't go And a lot of times if you're fully consumed, you might not even go as it is. So really play it off what your current gear status is. In the Tomb of the Shadow Force, Exalted out of AV, you're going to get 34 overall shadow damage. So this is a must go with this one. Now for wands, most Shadow Priests, if you do have one in your guild, is going to argue that they should get the Wand of Nobility first, and I definitely agree. So what's really nice is it's shadow damage, so it stacks. Like if they do happen to go on a long 2-minute fight or something like that, most casters are going So but the Shadow Priests are going to have, with their talents and everything else, they're going to get a lot more damage and everything out of using this wand. So the Wand of Nobility, I would definitely prioritize. If you did have a Shadow Priest, giving it to them first. You're probably only going to have one in the group anyways, so it doesn't hurt to sacrifice. When the mages and warlocks get every other piece, you can give up the wand. There's so many other alternatives, like the Touch of Chaos being plus 18, and that's coming out of ZG. So I would say bare minimum, get this one out of ZG. You're really not losing too much besides overall damage per second, and that's where, like, the Touch of Chaos, if someone's fighting with you about it, tell them to get a fucking ZG, and that you need the actual wand. So if you do go you could actually wand and keep up with pretty respectable damage, even wanding while waiting for your mana per 5 seconds to kick in to be able to cast more Shadow Word Pains. Looking at the gloves, Ebony Flame Gloves, plus 43 shadow. These are fucking great. So you are going to be fighting with warlocks on these gloves in the beginning. They come out of BWL, but realistically, most of your warlocks are going to be gunning for your Darkstorm gauntlets, which are pretty fucking great gloves. So I would tell them, hey, you can take the Darkstorm, give me the flame gloves. These were definitely excellent gloves that you should be getting your hands on. Bare minimum, before you get the flame gloves, before you even get into BWL, you better at least have Fellcloth gloves, 33 shadow damage. These are like fucking bare minimum. And if you're struggling on the hit, you can get these out of ZG. The Blood Tinge gloves, 19, 1% hit. But you shouldn't really be struggling too much with hit at this point. So like I said, get these flame gloves. Leave these ones to your warlocks and your mages. Looking at the belt, Eye Stalk Waist Cord. Now this is best in slot for your mages and your warlocks, so you are going to fall down the list substantially, especially because it has crit, and you really don't benefit that much off crit. The 41 overall raw damage is very nice, but there's some better alternatives in my eyes. I would personally go with the Fire Maul's Clutch, 35, but you get the 5 mana per 5 seconds. So this is, in my eyes, much better. And you could even, bare minimum, go with the Sash of Whispered Secrets. So coming out of MC, if you haven't done too much BWO and got the Fire Maul's Clutch, you could at least get the Sash. 33 overall damage, 6 mana per 5 seconds. It is so damn close to this one. But with this, you get a little bit more, plus you get the intellect. So the Fire Maul is definitely going to be better than the Sash, but the Sash is like the absolute bare minimum that you should be getting. All right, looking at the pants, the best one. This one's going to require you to actually do World Dragons. The Fel Infused Leggings, 64 shadow damage. These are huge. Now, your Warlocks might be trying to fight with you on this one, but realistically, they should be going with the leggings of Black Blizzard because they need to crit also. So I think these should definitely be given to your Shadow Priest first. And while waiting on these, respectable, get the Blood Vines. Nice, easy, buy these. These are like bare minimum. Like if someone showed up to the World Dragons and you don't at least have Blood Vines, I wouldn't even think about giving you the Fel Infused Legs. Like you have to put the effort in to deserve the best in slot. So bare minimum, get the Bloodvine Leggings, 37 overall damage, 1% hit. So a little bit of hit, a lot less damage. You could even buy the Felcore leggings, 43 overall damage, so a little bit more, 5 more damage, but you're giving up the hit. So I don't know if that's worth it. I think the Bloodvine's definitely going to be your go-to while you wait on these. And I forgot to mention, so as far as the enchants go, there's 2 ways you can go. To go with this way, you get the 8 damage overall. You could go with the ZG one that gives you 10 stamina, 4 mana per 5 seconds. If you're struggling that bad with mana, you could get 2 of these, the headpiece and the legs, giving you 8 mana per 5 seconds. I think the raw damage is overall better. You're going to get the plus 18 for the shoulder enchant from ZG on the shoulders, 2% reduced threat on the cloak, 4 to all stats for the chest, plus 7 intellect for the bracers, plus 30 for the mace, minor speed on the boots. And now that AQ is out, you can get the plus 20 shadow damage for the gloves. So those are the overall enchants. I didn't want to forget about those. As far as the boots go now. So, Boots of Empathy, plus 34 damage overall. That's coming out of AQ. These ones are pretty damn great boots. Now, personally, if you're doing World Dragons, I would rather go with the plus 32 and get the 5 mana per 5 seconds as a Shadow Priest. So if you are doing World Dragons, I would go this direction. To give up 2 overall damage to get the mana per 5 seconds, I find is more worth it. Other decent alternatives in the meantime, you see the Boots of Empathy is only plus 34. The Betrayer's Boots, which you can get out of ZG, are plus 30. So it's not, I wouldn't put this high up on the priority. I would put the Snowblind Boots high up on the priority if you are doing World Dragons. But overall, the Boots of Empathy out of AQ, nothing that crazy, especially when you can get something out of ZG plus 30. Now let's take a look at the rings. So your best in slot for your rings, Ring of the Fallen God. You're going to be fighting with Warlocks for this one. 34 damage, 1% hit. This is huge for Warlocks, so you are going to be a little bit down the list overall on this one. But as far as secondary rings that are pretty respectable, you could get the Band of Force Concentration. If you really need that hit, 21 overall damage, 1% hit. You could get the Spell Power out of Molten Core if you just want more raw damage, which is 33 overall damage. And your secondary best ring is the Band of Dark Dominion, 33 overall shadow damage. So you should have no trouble getting the Band of Dark Dominion as your second best in slot. And while waiting on the Ring of the Fallen God, another great ring that you could be looking at is the Quest ring, where you have to get, I believe, Exalted or Revered with the Signet of the Bronze Dragonflight, 28 damage, 5 mana per 5 seconds. So that ring is nothing to laugh about. Like I said, the mana per 5 seconds is huge, and the overall damage is pretty damn good also. Now looking at the trinkets, obviously there's probably some overall trinkets that I maybe forgot about, and I'm not going to go over the 1,000 different alternatives that you could possibly get. I'm going to talk about what I think the best overall best in slot are and a couple alternatives. So best Nephilim's tier, 44 damage is huge, 2% hit. Everybody wants this fucking trinket though, so realistically it's gonna take you a little bit to get this. Your secondary best in slot is actually out of ZG, the one where, if you see on the screen there, increases your spell damage by 204 for 20 seconds, and as you cast spells it reduces by 17. So the ZG trinket is a bare minimum. You should easily be able to get your hands on that. As far as the one replacing Nephilim's tier while you wait, I wouldn't even be stepping in BWL unless you at least have the Briarwood Reed, 29 overall damage. That's a very easy one to get. If you're struggling with mana, you could be looking at the Burst of Knowledge. The Burst of Knowledge, as you see, this one actually comes out of BRD. Little tougher to get because you have to kill the Flame Lash, and it's a small chance of getting it. But it reduces the cost of all of your spells by 100 for 10 seconds, 12 damage overall. So if you're struggling with mana, that's a great secondary one while waiting on the Nephilim's tier. So yeah, those are really the other alternatives. Like I said, Briarwood Reed, the Burst of Knowledge. The Eye of the Beast isn't very good because it gives you 2% crit, which you really could care less about. That's why the Briarwood Reed's like a go-to while you're waiting on the Nephilim's tier. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'd love to hear you guys' feedback below. Let me know what you think might be different. I don't even want to hear, oh, Shadow, you shouldn't even be bringing a Shadow Priest. Like, anybody that says that, fuck them. Like, who cares about min-maxing? If, God forsake, it takes an extra 5 to 10 minutes of a raid because we brought a Shadow Priest, which is an overstatement, I still wouldn't care. I'd like to have a variety of people, especially as a Warlock. I love your guys' buff. But I love to hear you guys' feedback below. And if you guys have watched any of my other videos where I opened up stuff and lost a ton of fucking money, I opened up 40 sack of spoils. I invested 3,600 gold to do it. So check out that video in the top right corner and take a guess how much I lost. As always though, game on.